It's football and other F words, and we're a little late past 12:30 p.m. But you know what, Mike? It doesn't matter because we do not have a sponsor for ad for this week, so we could just jump right in to some talk. And I just want to go ahead and start with the Lamar Jackson talk because that is obviously the hottest topic going on in the NFL, and there's a lot of layers I want to pull back. So I just want to jump right into this. Lamar Jackson was tagged with a non-exclusive franchise tag, which is about $32 million guaranteed money if he were to sign it for 1 year. Now, what this means is that other teams can negotiate contracts with Lamar Jackson since he's dumb enough that doesn't have an agent. So he can negotiate with other teams. He can sign one of the offers, bring that to the Ravens, and they have a chance to match it or to get 2 first-round picks, and those first-round picks are determined by, like, when this all goes down. So, got all that out of the way. Boy, did this cause a shitstorm of people that cannot read and that do not understand the state of the NFL currently as it sits. Mike, I think I'm going to start with a tweet that I am pretty sure is directed towards one of your tweets. And it would be the tweet where you ask, would you rather have this or rather have that? Which is like, would you rather have Lamar Jackson or $50 million and a couple draft picks and your favorite quarterback, whatever that quarterback may be? Or there was also another tweet that you had that said, would the people injury-prone quarterbacks with a lack of playoff success, you complain about all that, then, let's go pay Lamar and trade for Lamar.
Yeah.
So this is the tweet, and it's from In It For The Kicks. The Titans Twitter elites, the TT elites, are out and about today, saying they'd rather have Tannehill over Lamar. So I'm pretty sure that's directed at you because I go and I search Tannehill and Lamar on Twitter, and I don't see any of the normal elite accounts. In fact, I only see accounts that I've never even heard of, have never replied to any of my tweets, saying that they would like Tannehill over Lamar. So they're not elite. I would assume that this is directed towards you. Where in your tweets did you say that? Because I know that, Titans Twitter is really hard with reading comprehension, but nowhere in any of your tweets did you say that that you would rather have Tannehill over Lamar.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know because this is my least favorite thing about Twitter. Is you will say one thing, and then people will say, so you think completely unrelated to what you actually said, the words that you actually said. So it's just this wild place of, just jumps of logic or said. But no, nowhere did I ever say Ryan Tannehill is a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. That is dumb. Lamar Jackson is clearly a better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill. That is undebatable. It is undebatable. The Titans would be a better team right now with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. That is printed on the headlines for all the people that cannot read. Lamar Jackson better than Ryan Tannehill. You heard it here first.
Fully agree, by the way. I mean, I fully agree with everything that you said as far as in a vacuum, if you could go to Lamar Jackson and go to Ryan Tannehill and swap them and nothing changes, no draft picks, no money, you just put Lamar Jackson on this team 10 times out of 10, I would take Lamar Jackson. I've said that numerous times. I've written it. Of course, I didn't get into the shitstorm that you went down last night with all your tweets that, it's kind of a little bit of a self-inflicted shitstorm because how Titans Twitter is right now.
I know
it's a little self-inflicted. But the fact of the matter is that you never once in any of your tweets said you would rather have Tannehill over Lamar. You said you would rather have the 2 draft picks, the money, and your favorite quarterback, right? I mean, like that's where you fell into. That could be CJ Stroud, right?
That's what it comes down to. I would rather trade an extra first to go get CJ Stroud and have him under contract for, under a rookie NFL quarterback contract, which would be a fraction of what you would have to pay Lamar Jackson, than bringing on Lamar Jackson. And we can get into the reasons behind that, and I get there's risk with any projection of a rookie quarterback, but CJ Stroud and Bryce Young are good quarterback prospects. Like they are they may not be like Trevor Lawrence, Andrew Luck level, like
Andrew Luck and Joe Burrow. I wouldn't say.
well, okay, so but I know you have this thing about Trevor Lawrence, but Trevor Lawrence
You used
by,
to have this thing. You
by
come back
most
to me. Come back
by
to me, Mike.
by most people's standards, Trevor Lawrence was viewed as a pretty
Yeah.
much bulletproof quarterback prospect. They are not quite to that level, but they are not far off, right? Like they are a better quarterback prospect, for example, than any of like Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, as far as a prospect goes. Now, I'm not saying they will be a better NFL player than Josh Allen, but as a prospect coming out of college, what you're projecting to the NFL, they are better than all of those guys. They are better than most quarterbacks in most years. So this is actually a pretty good quarterback class to go get your guy. I mean, I think this is an opportunity for the Titans. And I would rather take the chances that one of those guys pans out than throw all this money and all these picks at Lamar Jackson and hope he regains a form that we haven't seen in 4 years.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing.
I think Paul Kaharski said it best, and he was on Robbie and Rex Road Wednesday morning, and he said a lot of people, and this is kind of the quote, but not the quote. A lot of people bring up that he's an MVP quarterback. Well, let's define what an MVP quarterback is. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady are perennial MVP quarterbacks. Carson, the year before, like what was it, 2 years before or a year before that Lamar Jackson won, Carson Wentz almost won a MVP. Like he was trending in the direction that year of being NFL MVP because of what the Eagles were doing. The year they won the Super Bowl, Nick Foles took over. What happened then? He got injured. He never sniffed another MVP. He missed games. And I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson is anywhere close to a bad quarterback as Carson Wentz. What I'm saying is, why are we holding on to this MVP award back in 2019 when pretty much the play that year was not that great? I mean, like what Lamar Jackson did was great. He was never able to duplicate it ever again and even come close to being the quarterback that he was that year. Now, there's a lot of maybe circumstances you want to throw in and this and that, and you want to blame the offensive coordinator. You want to blame the lack of weapons. You want to blame this. Either way you blame it, Lamar Jackson could not elevate talent. He is not an elite quarterback. That's just where I am personally at. It's Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow's getting up in there, and those are the only two elite quarterbacks. Okay,
I agree with you. I totally
those
agree.
Are the
and by
only
the way,
quarterbacks.
hey, Matt Ryan is an MVP quarterback.
Yeah,
he's available, right? I mean, like,
let's just get Matt Ryan. You know, if the qualifier is an MVP quarterback from 3+ years ago, we got a whole list of people that we can go get if you guys need it.
Yeah,
and to me, because someone said, well, Lamar Jackson deserves a fully guaranteed contract. By what metric? Is it just the metric that the Browns were the only team stupid enough to do that for Deshaun Watson? How'd that work out last year? How'd it work out trading multiple picks for I don't think Russell Wilson's ever won an MVP, right? He's always just been really close.
I don't think he's ever gotten a vote for an MVP.
Oh, has he not even gotten at least one vote? Oh,
yeah, I think that's like
wild.
one of those things that people always bring up about him.
But, you know, how did trading all those picks and getting a big contract to work out for Russell Wilson? Yeah, Lamar Jackson, I've seen a couple people say he hasn't hit his prime yet. I mean, I think he's kind of in his prime, but like...
Well, and this is the thing, too. I feel like Lamar Jackson's prime as a quarterback may not look the same as the prime of other more traditional quarterbacks. Like a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who mostly wins from the pocket, and sure, he has the ability to scramble and break tackles and stuff like that, but it is not like Lamar Jackson's game is primarily defined by the fact that he is the best athlete on the field at any point. Like he is able to make guys miss. He is a absolutely devastating threat with his legs. And what do we see? And I'm not doing the whole Lamar Jackson as a running back thing. I'm not doing that. That's trash. He's a good quarterback. But he has part of the skill set that he relies on is in common with running backs. Like it is something where if he loses his speed, what makes him really special is going to be damaged. And by the way, like guys lose their speed in their late 20s. I mean, we've seen it with Derrick Henry. I just wrote about this at paulkarski.com today about Derrick Henry's top speed that he reaches on a miles per hour basis. The highest speed that he got to in 2022 was almost a full mile per hour lower than his next
I've
lowest
gotten
high
slower
speed.
in my age.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I used to be a little bit faster than this, but it's I mean, it's the truth of the matter. And Derrick Henry, by the way, 29 years old. So Lamar Jackson, his prime as a quarterback. Now, if he turns into a Patrick Mahomes like player, or or
Yeah, well,
Joe
like, what's he
Burrow
waiting
like
for?
player, then sure, maybe that extends his prime somewhat. But I just don't know that that's ever going to happen because we have not seen any signs of it happening. Like, he is a good quarterback, but what makes him special is the running ability and the ability to just destroy people if you don't spy him or if you don't, account for him in the run game. So
But
I
this
just,
idea that he deserves the fully guaranteed contract is insane. And I
yeah,
know it only takes one team, right? That team last year was the Cleveland Browns. But guess what? All the teams that were in on the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes didn't give anybody a fully guaranteed contract. Denver Broncos were in on Deshaun Watson, right? What'd they do? Okay, well, we didn't get Deshaun Watson. We're going to go after Russell Wilson, and we don't have to give him a fully guaranteed contract. They still gave him a stupid, dumb contract, but they didn't give him fully guaranteed. The Falcons specifically pulled out of the Deshaun Watson situation, pissed off Matt Ryan on top of it, and they ended up, because they didn't want to pay a fully guaranteed contract. The Browns were the only team stupid enough to do it. Is there a team that could possibly do it? Yes, but I think it's going to happen after the draft. Like, I don't think that anybody is getting to get into the habit, and this is what I've been trying to explain. First off, the only two quarterbacks that deserve a fully guaranteed contract in my mind are Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, because they're the only ones that are elite. But that's just my specific opinion. And there's a lot of talks about collusion, and we'll get into that because it's a tight rope to walk. But guess what? It doesn't matter if it's collusion or not. The NFL ain't gonna be is too big to fail. They're not scared of any collusion. So hard to prove in a legal system. Good luck to Lamar Jackson, their representatives. Like,
well,
this idea that people are going to start backtracking because, they talked about collusion last night. They're bringing up collusion, but the NFL is going to do this. No, not really. Listen, you thought the same thing about when stuff happened with Colin Kaepernick. Guess what? They stuck to their guns, right? I mean, they completely wrong way to go about it, but they completely blackballed Colin Kaepernick, and they got away with it. You think this little collusion thing that is way harder to prove than that Colin Kaepernick blackballing thing is going to change anything about the NFL? No. They do not want to put $200 million in cash in an escrow account in the first season of the contract and hold it there. And because if they start doing it for Lamar Jackson and he gets his way, then they're going to have to do it for the next quarterback, and they're going to have to do it for the next quarterback, and then they're going to have to do it to other positions. You just are not going to get there.
I don't even think it goes that deep. I think it is. Of course, they don't want to give him a fully guaranteed contract. He hasn't finished either of the last two seasons. He's missed at least 5 games each of the past 2 seasons, including the games where in 2021 the Ravens were trying to get into the playoffs and he wasn't available. In 2022, he missed a playoff game and that they lost that was very close, that they easily could have won with him in there. Of course, they don't want to give him fully guaranteed money over 4 or 5 years, because what happens if he blows out his knee, or what happens if all these injuries just keep popping up, that, he gets a payday and every time he gets a sore ankle, he doesn't want to play? Like, it's fully guaranteed money. He has no incentive to care about anything. I mean, as long as he shows up and does his job and doesn't, necessarily like refuse to go on the field when he's fully healthy. Like, I just don't. Why would they want to give him guaranteed money? You don't have to have a meeting to talk about that.
Yeah.
Like, of course they don't.
If he's faking injuries, by the way, I've seen people say, well, I think he faked. And I've seen legit sources, not just people on Twitter, have alluded to it. And I think even the Ravens kind of alluded to it, that he kind of is sitting out to save himself for free agency, try to make more money. Look, I'm all for players making money like that. But if he's faking an injury now, what's to stop him from faking an injury later on a team that is out of playoff contention and he's getting fully guaranteed money?
Yeah, or I mean, look, if he was willing to fake an injury to stay off the field for an NFL playoff game against a division rival, I don't want him on my team, period, point blank. Like, if that's what really happened,
and I don't
I'm out,
believe that's what
period.
happened, by the way. I think
I
that
don't,
is
I
like,
don't either.
yeah. I
But
think
I'm
that's
just
what
saying
people need to understand. Neither of us, we think that is a stupid ass rumor, but it's not a rumor that if you're going to use it, that makes Lamar look good. Like, people
Right.
got to understand that it would be a reason why teams aren't going to give him a fully guaranteed contract. That's not a good thing. That is a
Right.
bad thing among the NFL. And I do not think he did that, by the way, because we'd
I
have
don't
players
either.
come
I
out and
think
say something. All the Baltimore Ravens players would not be coming out to try to support Lamar Jackson, want him to get paid, want him to be a Raven if they knew he quit on him. Okay, so let's just put that out there.
I do think there's some mystery as far as what happened at the end of last season with him, because Rich Eisen talked about it. I think it was on today's show or maybe it was yesterday's. But he talked about it, and Lamar not being on the sideline in Cincinnati and everything like that, and they're they said he was sick or whatever, but there's definitely some weirdness that was going on at the end of last season between Lamar and the Ravens, and whether that was just tensions over the contract situation kind of boiling over and not really anything more to it than that. Maybe that's the simplest explanation, but I do think there's a valid question about what happened at the end of last season. But I don't think he was faking an injury. I think maybe he was more hurt than they initially thought, or got re-injured at some point, or the training staff, which, obviously, we just saw the NFLPA grades and everything, and the Ravens players all hate their training staff.
Yeah.
So maybe that had something to do with that. But something happened there at the end of last season between Lamar and the Ravens. And if I was a team, by the way, and Rich Eisen made this point, so I'm borrowing it from him, I would want to know what happened at the end of last season before I'd be willing to sit down and talk about, $200 million.
I guess what, they just came from the combine. They all know what happened at the end of the last season. Like, that's what you guys got to understand, is that the combine, they may have not talked to Lamar, but they have they talked to the Ravens.
They know what happened from the Ravens' point of view. Now, they should find out what happened from Lamar's point of view for sure. But again, and I hate to side with Mike Florio, I do think this is why Lamar Jackson should have hired an agent. This is the kind of situation where you would want your representation out there telling teams, look, this is what happened. And it's just different when it's coming from him and not from an agent and not from the player.
Well, I mean, that's what the agent is supposed to do. The agent is supposed to not only work best for you, but also insulate yourself and get your name out there in a positive light, combat stories, do this, do that. I mean, we haven't heard a peep from Lamar Jackson really about this whole situation. And here's the other thing. To me, it just is coming down to, you're giving away 2 first-round draft picks, right? Which probably per year are going to be way cheaper than what you're going to be paying per year for Lamar Jackson, obviously. And not every team is just a quarterback away. Like, that's the problem, is that, like, these teams that are people like, well, I can't believe Atlanta wouldn't go after him. Well, Atlanta's not a quarterback away. And if you listen to Terry Fortnott's comments, I think it was in Albert Breer's article this week, Fortnott basically talked about, they understand, him, Arthur Blank, Arthur Smith, are of the understanding that they are probably still a year or 2 away, but they're all good with the direction that the franchise is heading. Trading away first-round draft picks and paying a guy a fully guaranteed contract, because that's the only way right now that that Lamar Jackson is going to sign an offer sheet, is if it's a fully guaranteed contract. These people bringing up the $133 million fully guaranteed they offered, that was offered last year, and it had up to 160 to 180 million guaranteed in it, but it was fully guaranteed at 133. These people got to stop bringing up that number. That is an old number, old information. Obviously, that number has gone up. How far, I don't know, but it's probably closer to 150 fully guaranteed, I would say.
And he declined that, right? I mean, it's like that wasn't enough. So
So he's wanting to be, for all intents and purposes, close to a Deshaun Watson fully guaranteed contract in terms of money. He wants to be 200 million plus. The Falcons, while they do have that kind of money, they know and they learned. I bet you anything that the Atlanta Falcons are like, man, we really dodged a bullet with that whole Deshaun Watson thing. So why would they go and try to repeat the same mistake? And it may end up maybe like Lamar Jackson suddenly is healed and he knows how to play the system and all that. They're not a quarterback away. The Panthers are probably the closest, but they're in a position where they can draft a quarterback, right? Like at this point, you guys have to understand what's the best way to build a team. And none of these teams that were connected to Lamar Jackson are trying to buy a Super Bowl for like 1 year. And that's essentially what you're trying to do. You're trying to go after and say, you're trying to pull a Rams, right? You're trying to get a Matt Stafford and say, okay, with Lamar Jackson, we are set up right now to win a Super Bowl and we're going to win. It's going to pay dividends immediately. None of these teams are at that situation. And also from the side of this, the Ravens are the smartest front office in the history of the NFL. I don't care what you say. I'm not saying that they're the best, but they are the smartest. They're the ones who first started calculating, manipulating the compensatory pick formula. And now everybody's doing that, right? Well, most everybody, but most teams are now like picking up on the compensatory pick formula. They also were the first to start targeting and mining small school players before the rest of the NFL caught on. Like if you trace back, and this is from Connor Orr on Sports Illustrated, and this is what he specifically said. If you want to trace the development of the modern NFL front office, so much of it winds through the work done by Ozzie Newsome and Eric DeCosta over the past decade plus. These are GMs who treated Baltimore like the answer section of the workbook and flipped there directly. They put the non-exclusive franchise tag because they knew what Lamar Jackson's market was, and they know that essentially what's going to happen is he's going to bring an offer to him that's not fully guaranteed. They're going to match it, and they're going to be good to go. And they're going to win because that's what the NFL is set up to do, because the NFLPA sucks, and they've let this funding rule that requires the escrow account that's been around for around 40 years. They've let this sit there, and this is why you're not getting fully guaranteed contracts. It's not to say if you lift it or you lessen how much you have to put in the escrow account that every contract can be fully guaranteed, but the likelihood that owners will probably start opening up the checkbook for that becomes greater, right? So, like,
and by the way,
it's Lamar Jackson's fault at the end of the day for not having representation.
And that escrow rule, by the way, was put in place back when the NFL was like whether or not it would even survive.
Yeah, they had no clue
teams were folding, and it was a guarantee that a team wouldn't just go out of business and leave a player screwed as far as getting paid. So it's a very antiquated rule based on where the league is today compared to where it was when it was instituted. But it is like there's all these factors, and I think that's something that people are just skipping over with the Lamar Jackson thing. Is there's a lot of factors that come into play here because, look, it has been proven. Now, Patrick Mahomes just won a Super Bowl. I think we can all agree as adults that Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. Patrick Mahomes just won a Super Bowl, and that was like the first quarterback to ever do it with like that level contract, right? I mean, it was like just him that as far as like taking up that amount of cap space. It's extremely difficult to build a really high-end roster when you have your quarterback taking up, say, $50 million a year worth of cap. It's even harder to do it when you're going ahead and kneecapping 2 first-round picks right out of the chute, which you need to hit on to have cheap, good, high-talent players around that quarterback that's super expensive, because you're going to have to hit in the draft. Like that. That is how these teams have to build. Once you get to that certain point with quarterback pay, you've got to hit in the draft. You've got to hit with these like low-level free agent signings and stuff like that. You've got to be really, really smart, really, really good with your money, trying to support that quarterback without letting it all fall apart around him, because it's easy to do. I mean, like the Bills are up against it right now because cap-wise, they're gonna have to lose some guys. I mean, they're gonna lose some players this offseason because they paid Josh Allen. And, guess what? They should have. But
they didn't pay him a fully guaranteed contract, people. Keep that in mind,
also didn't
by
pay
the
him
way.
Fully guaranteed. But there's all this stuff, and I think that's why the quarterback class comes into play here and is a part of the conversation, because especially for a team like the Titans, or even more so for people.
It's really for the next 2 years, right? You got to project. When you're a GM, you're projecting out for at least another year. Great GMs project out even further, but you're looking at it and you're saying, Okay, well, I'm going to give up both my first-round draft picks. Well, I could have a quarterback in this year's draft or next year's draft that's cheaper and probably has the same upside, maybe a little bit longer shelf life.
Yeah, and you would have to give up fewer picks, or not fewer picks, but you'd have to give up a relatively similar amount of picks to get your quarterback, your preferred quarterback out of 2023 or 2024. So we're talking CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, Quinn Ewers, whoever else emerges from the 2024 group. I'm sure there will be at least one or two that do. But those are going to be some really good quarterbacks prospects in the next two classes, and you would be able to get them for about the same price in draft picks and at a fraction of the cost cap-wise. So there's risk involved on both sides, and I get, like, Lamar's proven himself as a quality NFL quarterback. He has, and that is valuable to some degree when you're comparing him against rookie prospects or whatever. But the injury stuff, the fact that he has not performed at the same level over the last few years, that all brings risk into the equation. It is not like you can just say, all right, well, look what he did in 2019. He's going to be that guy if we stick him on the 2023 Titans, which, by the way, would have a horrible offensive line because they would be, even if you set up the contract as friendly as you could for like the first year cap hit and all that stuff.
Which you can't on a fully guaranteed contract, by the way. Like, it's almost, I mean, I guess you can't because of Deshaun Watson, but yeah, I mean, it's make ridiculous.
Like $60 million signing bonus or something like that and spread it all out. And you're still talking about like a $20 million cap hit in year one, most likely. And that's going to be a big chunk of what they have. So, and you have no pick at 11. So you're talking about, you're finding your starting left tackle either on the bargain bin free agency or, in the middle rounds of the draft. I mean, he would have a terrible supporting cast here. It's not like they'd win right away, I don't think, with Lamar Jackson.
Well, I look at it this way. At the end, it's just the state of the NFL. It has nothing to do with anything other than the money and the value you're getting back in return. Because we've seen teams bend over backwards for a guy last year in Deshaun Watson, and it didn't work. We saw teams bend over for Russell Wilson. Didn't work. Normally, this kind of stuff doesn't work. And the Ravens would not, if they were not confident that they were going to have Lamar Jackson back in the fold, or at least have he was at least not going to get the contract that he thought he was, they would not have let him, do the non-exclusive. They're telling you in neon letters what is going down with this team. And, I just think about it in the sense that the Tennessee Titans, like, if John Robinson had done better in free agency and had done better in the draft, and Kayla Anderson on 104.5 this morning said this, they could be in the market for Lamar Jackson. But none of that happened. So if you want to see why the Tennessee Titans should not look at the state of the roster, look at the resources you would have to allocate, look what you could do after signing Lamar Jackson. I will say this. I think after the draft, Lamar Jackson's market could heat up. I think you're going to see teams that were previously out get back in because those are future draft picks, right? They're not draft picks in this upcoming draft. Those are future chances. So I could see it coming, but let me say this. Nobody is going, and I'm, if you want to put it out, and you can call me out if he gets a fully guaranteed contract, I'm not going to care. No one is going to pay him a fully guaranteed contract.
And if it's fully guaranteed, it's going to be way less money or way shorter term.
Right. Like, it's not going to be a $200 million fully guaranteed contract. Right. And for those who are like, well, I can't believe the Giants would pay Daniel Jones. They're paying Daniel Jones a 2-year contract, and it's $86 million fully guaranteed and $105 in total guarantees. That's a large difference between that and $200+ million fully guaranteed. That's a huge, massive difference. He's getting paid like Daniel Jones should get paid in the current market climate. If Lamar Jackson wants $160 million fully guaranteed, I could see it. I'm all for it. I think that would be the most, if I'm not mistaken, the fully guaranteed money. I understand. $200 million, I know that seems crazy that $40 million makes that big of a difference, but it does. Because it's also about the years involved in all of it. So it's just, this is why you don't represent yourself when you're this level a veteran or of a NFL player in. You just don't. Okay.
And by the way, I also think that Daniel Jones contract is not a good contract. For the
It
Giants.
is a weird Ryan Tannehill-esque contract that they can get out of it early, but they're probably going to have to touch before then, which is not. Hey, listen, that's not a good thing to do. And
we
I
played
agree.
this game. We played this game before.
Yeah. Geno Smith probably in a similar situation, but we'll see. Those numbers haven't fully came out yet. Okay. Mike. Oh, man. So a lot has happened since we were last recorded besides Lamar Jackson. We have lots and lots of rumors flying out from Trevor Sikkema, from previous sources that the Tennessee Titans are interested in trading up. Teron Davenport heard while he was at the Combine that their favorite quarterback or their favorite guy out of the quarterback is C.J. Stroud. I think we're both pretty much of the ilk that it's like 1A, 1B. Doesn't really matter if it's C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, 1A, 1B for us. Okay.
And I honestly may be tilting to make Stroud the 1A.
Yeah. And I'm not going to put up a big old fight if they pass on Bryce Young. I'll be a little heartbroken, but that's okay. But ultimately, I want to dive into a different aspect of this. I've talked about Simmons. We talked about the Simmons thing a little bit last week. Positional value, this or that. It sounds like by all accounts, the words being used by Ryan Poyles and then Rich Eisen has came out and said that he heard that the deal is going to be done for the number 1 overall pick sooner rather than later. But Ryan Poyles had different words to say. Maybe he was just putting stuff out in the media to drum up a little bit extra heat in business, because that's what happens right after the Combine. But he talks about 3 interested parties at the Combine, included at least one that's further back than what I thought. But if I'm going to the next tier on the Bears draft board, you're going to have to make up for that with more capital. More capital does not necessarily mean more draft picks. Are you okay with trading? If the Tennessee Titans came out and said, we are trading Jeffrey Simmons, a first-round pick, and who cares, whatever, blah, 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 for C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, the number 1 overall pick, that's conviction. That's one of the qualifiers. Are you okay with it?
Yes, I would be ultimately. And look, I would prefer that they trade 3 first-round picks or whatever it is. If they traded they traded 11 plus 2024 first plus 2025 first plus even like another future day 2 pick or something like that. That would be my preference as far as like a realistic deal that I think would get it done. But I think there is a real chance that the Bears will look at that and go, look, 11 puts us out of the range. And kind of like what you said, like Ryan Poles said, it is, you're going to have to pay a premium if you're taking us out of the tier where we can get Will Anderson or whether, you want to go down that road or not now or whatever. But the premium defensive players, the Bears, they need help everywhere. So that's why they're looking at trading back, by the way. But they've got to find some premium players on defense because they've got 0 right now, like none. I mean, I guess Eddie Jackson's a pretty good player. Jalen Johnson's a decent player, but they got nothing else that carries any weight. So I could see them saying, look, we're not moving all the way back to 11 unless you give us Simmons. And if that was the case, and it was a choice between, do I package Simmons up with pick 11 and maybe one other thing or something like that and make the deal, or sit tight and miss out on the quarterback opportunity, I would make the deal. I would go get the quarterback because I think there is nothing more important to an NFL franchise than having a franchise quarterback. And the Titans don't have one.
Especially having one on a rookie deal.
Exactly. And look, I love Jeffrey Simmons. I think he's great. I think he's going to be great for the next contract. I think he would be a killer ad for any team in the league. And I hope the Titans re-sign him if they can find a way to do it. And if they could trade up and re-sign Jeff Simmons, that's win-win. But if they had to include him, I'm okay with doing that because ultimately you could have 3 Jeff Simmonses on the team. And if you don't have a freaking quarterback who matters when it comes down to playoff time, doesn't matter. You're not going anywhere. You're not winning the NFL championship with a great defense and a mediocre quarterback. It just doesn't happen anymore.
And here's something I want to say about these rumors. Okay, so obviously they're rumors, but they're rumors from multiple different sources, multiple different companies. They've been around since the Senior Bowl, and they're just getting more and more out there, and the Tennessee's being linked in multiple different ways. So I want to bring this back to, though, what this means for the current quarterbacks on this roster. And I know everybody was up in arms thinking that the Tennessee Titans said that Ryan Tannehill is going to be here for forever and he's the quarterback for the next 10 years, and that they all praised Malik and he's next coming of John Elway and Peyton Manning and Tom Brady all rolled into one. But ultimately what this should tell you is that they don't like either of these guys. They'll be okay, they'll ride with them if they have to, but they're actively trying to replace not only just Ryan Tannehill, they're actively trying to replace Malik Willis. Guys, it's over for Malik. It is so far done. They can be as nice as possible out in the media when they're asked a question specifically about Malik. That's what GMs are going to do. That's what head coaches are going to do. They're never going to come out and say, this guy fucking sucks. We hate him. We're getting him out of here. Unless they're Aaron Rodgers and they've worn the ass out of the team because they want him out. But that's a totally different situation. Guys, it's over for your Malik Willis starting as a viable future franchise quarterback, as a viable even NFL average starter. He's nothing more than a backup. You could just clip this off, play it over and over. I don't care. He is not one, and their actions are telling you that. Their actions are saying, hey, we're about to trade multiple draft picks to go get a quarterback, even though we just drafted a young quarterback. And you know why? Because Mike Vrabel didn't want Malik, and Ren Carthon didn't draft Malik. He passed over Malik numerous times himself over in San Francisco, and they ended up taking a 7th-round quarterback because they knew that he was going to be a better quarterback than any of the other ones beforehand. And Ren Carthon comes from a place that has conviction that trades up in San Francisco for a quarterback that traded up for Trey Lance. They do not have any conviction or emotional ties to Malik Willis. The fans do, and the fans need to stop.
I think look, the way you should view Malik Willis at this point is if he turns into anything more than what we saw last year, it's a happy coincidence. It's like, oh, good, that worked out. It is not something that they're banking on. I think that's how they view him. I think they view him as like, hey, sure, we're going to keep working with him, and maybe he could be a good backup quarterback for us. A cheap backup quarterback too, if he develops a little bit. Because right now, he's not even good backup quality. That's where he is development wise, realistically. But hey, maybe next year he'll be better. He'll learn the offense more. He'll be able to progress through the reads, whatever. I think they're looking at it as maybe he'll be a good backup for us. If he turns into anything more than that, it's like, oh wow, great, But at that point, you're gonna probably trade him. I mean, right? If he turned into anything where he was actually good and you could get something for him, and you had gone and drafted, say, CJ Stroud, and Stroud, unless Stroud was a total bust or whatever, which that gets complicated, but. Assuming Stroud is the guy that you draft him to be, you would just turn around and trade Malik Willis. So, yeah, I don't think they're planning on – there's no plans of Malik Willis becoming the long-term starting quarterback of the Titans currently. I think that's fair to say.
He's just a guy that it's just kind of like I said, when he got drafted and how we viewed it, he's a lottery ticket, right?
Yeah.
I'll hold on to it for a little bit while. Maybe my numbers hit again later, but I'm not going to really, I'm still going to go buy more lottery tickets.
I'm not going to plan on paying my rent next month with Malik Willis.
All right. So this all ties into, again, going and talking about Jeffrey Simmons, and he deletes his social media. He removes Tennessee Titans off Instagram. He deletes Twitter. I don't know if his Instagram is still up or not. Maybe he deleted it too.
Yeah,
it's gone too?
It's gone too.
Okay, good. I don't even care about these players being on social media. I know that's at Titan Stats West. If he didn't have Derrick Henry content to put out of him working with someone, it would it would go dark for days. Same with corked bats. If they in A to Z, man, they are desperate for some Derrick Henry content.
All the
Whenever it
chain
happens,
push-ups and
those little workouts
yeah.
and stuff. But I get to a point, and I've been thinking about this for a couple of months, and since Jeffrey Simmons switched agents, and his agent is very snide and I don't know if snide's the right word, but he's very much on Twitter, and he sends little daggers to the Tennessee Titans here and there. And he's not a well-known agent. He's a relatively new and young agent. And I'm wondering if that's going to hurt the negotiations in terms of how Jeffrey Simmons handles how long this could take. Because the Titans obviously probably want it to be done sooner rather than later. I mean, Dexter Lawrence is going to get an extension soon. Quentin Williams is going to get an extension soon. They obviously want to get it done and want to get it done.
Hargrave's going to get a big free agent deal.
Yeah. And you got the draft coming up and all this stuff. I mean, they obviously want to get it done. But I wonder how much the agent's going to play into this and making these negotiations a little bit contentious, because he has been a little contentious on Twitter here and there. And PK is an old man screaming at clouds a lot. He came out of like a 10-day, 100-day coma on Twitter the other day, just started talking to everybody. And, he's back in town, Twitter sheriff with his little badge and everything. But he brought up a point that I had been thinking about how the agent is just a young gun looking to make a big splash, which good for him. First off, by the way, I understand how negotiations work. I'm not here talking bad about an agent, because that's exactly what the agent should do: make the splash, get the money, get your client paid. But there's right ways of going about it, and I wonder, quickly for you, because we need to get to some other stuff before we gotta go. But does this social media stuff really matter to the teams? And B, where are you on the comfortability that when do you think this deal is going to get done?
So one, I don't think the social media thing matters to the team at all. In fact, honestly, if I was advising players in high stakes negotiations with a team in this kind of exact situation, I would tell them to delete my social media too, because here's what happens in these negotiations. The team and your agent are battling against each other, right? Like, yes, you're on the same team. You might even both want to find a way to make this work, but you want the numbers to be different. And the team is going to be sitting there telling Jeffrey Simmons and his agent stuff like, I know you want Aaron Donald money, but you ain't Aaron Donald. Like, let's be real. Like, you're not Aaron Donald. You don't have any double-digit sack seasons. You don't have the playmaking that Aaron Donald has been able to show. You are not Aaron Donald. You're not Chris Jones, for that matter. They're going to be saying things like that, which will be hurtful to hear for Jeffrey Simmons. And I can see a guy, especially a young guy, emotional maybe, going on Twitter and, being like, man, whatever, and throwing out some cryptic tweet or something like that. It doesn't make anyone look good. It doesn't help anything. All it can do is make negotiations worse, in my opinion. So I think deleting all of the social media is actually probably a good strategy for all players to around contract time. Just don't put anything out there. Don't put anything out there. Don't let the fans get riled up, because the fans will get riled up on either side. Some of them will be, oh, you need to take a hometown discount, and where's your loyalty? And other fans will be, oh, go get paid. You should get $40 million a year fully guaranteed. Like, there's no need for all that flooding into your brain, because that does nothing but like poison. It's like Nick Saban rat poison, Don't get on social media. You should not be on social media for that. So I am pro him deleting all that stuff. I don't think it means anything. I don't think it means the negotiations are going bad. I don't think it means they're going well. I think it means nothing. As far as timing, man, your guess is as good as mine there, because I think he probably wants to wait, and the team probably wants it done quick. Although it could be, if they're looking at, if they are actually talking to the Bears about trading, potentially, maybe they don't want to get it done before they make a decision on that. So I think it's I think it's a delicate balance timeline wise because yeah, you're right. If Quinnen Williams, the defensive tackle market's super weird right now, anyways, because you got Aaron Donald up here at like almost 32 million a year, and then you go all the way down to DeForest Buckner at like 21 million a year. There's a
I
huge
think there's
$10
Chris
million
Jones in
gap.
between there, right? Isn't Chris Jones between them?
Unless he just signed a new deal, then no. I think
Okay.
he's in that 21 million range too. So like there's a whole bunch in that like 20 million dollar general range. And then Aaron Donald's way up there. They're all going to be pushing to try to get to like close to Aaron Donald money. And I don't know who's most likely to give that out. But I would, if I'm a team, I'd be trying to get mine done before, some dumb team, throws out a $30 million contract for one of these guys.
Hey, saw it with the Christian Kirk contract last year, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that dumb team, Jacksonville, screwed up the whole wide receiver market for everybody.
It'll screw the whole market. But I think ultimately you settle somewhere in the middle. Ideally is somewhere 25, 26 million a year. Somewhere
That's where I've
there.
always kind of thought like 23, 24 is a good number. But we'll see. The reading comprehension is coming back around. We're coming back full circle. We started with reading comprehension. We're going to end with reading comprehension. And maybe it's not comprehension as much as it is reading between the lines. But the Derrick Henry trade rumors that started up and the two different reports that came out. First, Mike Silver, formerly of NFL Network. According to my sources, all of them current general managers. It's very important. Let me say it one more time. All of them current general managers. Tennessee Titans running back Derrick Henry, Los Angeles Rams cornerback Jalen Ramsey, and Arizona Cardinals receiver DeAndre Hopkins are among the players who've been shopped in recent days. Then that got, of course, Twitter up into a tizzy. And then Jonathan Jones comes out and he says, I know there's talk that the Titans are shopping running back Derrick Henry, but my sources, okay, so his source could be anybody. It may not even be a GM, by the way. My sources tell me they are not. I have been told General Manager Rand Carthon would be methodical in his approach to free agency and changes to the team. Okay. That does not mean that there have not been Derrick Henry trade talks. I think that there has been, because I'm going to listen to the NFL GMs over just random sources. Now, there could be semantics in play or whatever, but there have been talks between the Tennessee Titans and teams, whether they initiated it or not, about Derrick Henry being traded. And it makes total sense. And I'll be honest, I am one of those people, because I know a lot of people say, well, if you trade Derrick Henry, you might as well trade Ryan Tannehill. Those are, to me, mutually exclusive situations. Because quarterback, you have to have a quarterback. And you can win without Derrick Henry. You can't win without a quarterback. Now, I'm not saying that you can't win with a different quarterback other than Ryan Tannehill, because you can. But it ain't going to be Malik Wilson. It ain't going to be Josh Dobbs. Let's be honest here. You have to have a top-end quarterback. Now, if they are wanting to blow it up, then that is fine, because there's Mike Greenberg, I guess, on Pat McAfee's show at some point today while we were recording this, said that he thinks that Ryan Tannehill is going to get cut. Maybe he knows something. Maybe he doesn't. It's Mike Greenberg. I don't know of Mike Greeny ever really breaking anything. So, again, I
Rappaport has been dropping hints that he thinks Tannehill is going to be back too, by the way. Yeah. And we know, as we've mentioned on this pod many times, the two people you listen to in the national media for Titan stuff is Ian Rappaport and Diana Orsini. Those are the two that have consistently hit on Titans topics.
And Tannehill's going to be back until he's not, which means that they're going to have CJ Stroud or another quarterback already in place that they are going to get. They're not going to get rid of Ryan Tannehill and then be like, well, I don't know what we're doing now. We have nothing concrete to do.
Exactly.
Like, it's just not how it's going to work. Now, I'll say this. If Derrick Henry's gone, I've said it, they should have traded him earlier. It will be a good thing for the Tennessee Titans to pick up extra picks, especially if they're trading up to get the number 1 overall pick. I know everybody's like, well, it's going to be great for running or quarterback to have Derrick Henry back there. It's going to be even better for a quarterback to have a young offensive line or young offensive weapons to grow with, and that is getting an extra mid-round pick for Derrick Henry. Like, that's just how I would build a team. It's not the most perfect way, and I'm not saying it's the most perfect way, but to me, the best use of your draft, of your capital and your assets to me is to trade Tannehill, trade Derrick Henry, trade up for one. Like, I know that sounds like it's like a lot of trading because that may include Simmons. It may not include Simmons. I would try not to. But either way, you got to go up there and you got to do it.
Yeah, I'm with you. And look, to the Derrick Henry reports, I think the very clear takeaway is that Mike Silver was told that he was being shopped. I think
NFL GMs, like that's
right.
big. It's
that
not
is
former big. NFL GMs. It's not like Mike Tannenbaum on ESPN Get Up or Rex Ryan or whatever. Like, it is legit current NFL GMs who were probably asked about, hey, are you guys interested in Derrick Henry?
Yeah, exactly. And I absolutely think that conversations were had about trading Derrick Henry and with multiple teams, obviously. So, and I think they should have been had because I like you. I think, look, Henry's amazing. He's special. He's a unique talent. He's one of my favorite players to ever watch in the franchise. However, Father Time comes for everyone. He is going to be 30 very soon. That is happening. I believe he turns 30 at the end of the season. It'll be
I think he's the
season.
December baby.
So he's going to be 30 years old. And I went and looked up the numbers for all 30-year-old running backs over the last, however many years, and specifically for bigger backs, because bigger backs, it's a tougher league when you're a bigger back to hold up over that long period of time. 240-pound backs with 1,000 yards or more in a season past 30 years old. There's two of them. Garrett Blunt, which was not one of the names I was expecting, and Christian Okoye in 1991.
Wow.
Those are the only two. So Derrick Henry, look, he's defied the odds before, and maybe he'll do it again. But at some point, you're betting against. You're betting on such a low probability thing, even for a freak like Derrick Henry, that it just becomes illogical. And if you're going to go and move on from him, now's the time to do it while you can still get something back for him, while you can still get picks to help replace him, to help, build other pieces of your roster up, because this roster is in desperate need, as we've talked about all offseason, of young talent. And hey, go get some of those pieces and parts. And by the way, wipe some cap space off. It's not a lot of cap space. Like, I think they saved like $6 million this year, and I think it's like $5 million next year by trading him. But it is still that's cap money that can be spent on another piece, another player, another guy that is going to be more in this window. Because the thing is, if you're convincing yourself that you need to keep Derrick Henry, and this really applies to Ryan Tannehill too, to me this year, then to me you have to be convinced that you can do something this season, that you can actually go win playoff games. I'm not remotely convinced that this team can do that, even with Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill back. I think
win just enough to fuck you. Like,
I think they'll win 8 or 9 games maybe, and be right there on the edge of contention, but then end up missing the playoffs and be picking 16th, next draft. And that's not where you want to be. That is nowhere you want to be. And to me, if they are not convinced that they can compete this year, then now is the time to move on from Derrick Henry. And I know it would suck for the fans. It would suck for them as a PR, side, from a ticket sales standpoint, from a merch sales, whatever. It would suck, but it would be better for them in the long term.
Here's a list of free agent running backs coming free: Miles Sanders, David Montgomery, Jeff Wilson, Devin Singletary, Damian Harris, Kareem Hunt, Jamal Williams, Raheem Mostert, Rashad Penny, Jerick McKinnon, Alexander Madison. About 80% of that list can come in and help out a rookie quarterback. So, to me, this also hurts Derrick Henry's trade value, because there are so many free agent quarterbacks out there or running backs out there. But this guarantees you, like we've talked about before, when you're trading for a player, you're guaranteeing yourself a player. The free agent market does not guarantee you anything. And it's a player with a contract that you can take on and you can maneuver around and provide extensions if you want to, this or that. He is a cheap 1-year rental at the very least. And I think there are talks, serious considerations revolving Derrick Henry. And I think there are talks probably involving the first round pick. It makes sense for this team at the end of the day.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a pretty good running back class too, by the way.
And you to end it, you talked about it on paulkarski.com. Your article is out today. Go subscribe to paulkarski.com. But you wrote today about the trade situations involving Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, Jeffrey Simmons. Great read. Everybody go read it. We didn't get to the NFL Combine or anything like that. I do got to get to a vet appointment. Got to take Huxley over there. He's been having some allergy issues. We're trying to nail that down. So we're ending the show a little bit early, but I'm Zach Light. You follow me on Twitter at FWordsPod. He's Mike Herndon. You can follow him on Twitter at Mike Herndon NFL. And much like Bud Dupree, we are out of here. This has been Football Under Their F Words, and you have just been effed.